Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sauce. Finally, the All-Star break is over and we're back. And it's Friday, my favorite MLB day. Now, obviously, just returning from the break, probably not the best day betting value-wise. But still, there's 15 games. We're going through all of them. Having a nice little July here. The end of June was a nightmare. I had a 10-day stretch from hell. You probably remember it. Thank God those days are over. I think I'm up about 4.5 units in the month of July. Love the positivity. Let's keep it rolling. 15 games, like I said. Let's go.
Welcome to the Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
First up, Padres at Phillies. Yu Darvish pitching against Christopher Sanchez. We got the Padres open up as slight favorites here, minus 130. Total opens up at 9.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. According to the model, we got a lean on Philadelphia here. 4-2 Phillies after 5 innings. Final score 6-3 Phillies. So obviously we know that Yu Darvish has much better looking numbers at home than he does on the road. That's nothing new. It's been the case with Darvish for multiple years now. But like I said last week, the FIP numbers indicate that the gap isn't nearly as dramatic as the ERA is showing. The ERA shows 6 runs per 9 innings on the road compared to 3.8 per 9 innings at home. I think the expected FIP numbers are closer to where we should be handicapping this guy, about 3.5 runs per 9 innings at home, about 4.5 runs per 9 innings on the road. I wanted to throw this graphic up on the screen for a second. Phillies are most likely going to have 5 lefty starters in their lineup for this game, and if you look at Darvish's righty-lefty splits, sure, the WOBA numbers are pretty similar, but look at the home runs per 9, more than double against right-handed bats. FIP and expected FIP also way down against lefties. So these numbers indicate that Yu Darvish has pitched much better against left-handed bats than his numbers show, and there should be a positive turn in that department coming. Another thing I like for Yu Darvish here, he's got great history against the Phillies. He's made 7 career starts against Philadelphia. He's 2-1 with a 2.23 ERA and an 0.96 WHIP, and it gets even better when you look at his numbers on the road in Philadelphia. He's made 4 career starts in Citizens Bank Park. He's 1-1 with a 1.42 ERA and an 0.86 WHIP and a strikeout rate over 30%. So yeah, he's been pretty good here. And one thing you have to mention about the Phillies, sure, they were playing much better baseball, no doubt. They went on a nice little hot streak. They won like 15 out of 19 games or something like that. But this lineup still, despite that, wasn't putting up big numbers against right-handed pitching at all. In the last 14 days before the break, just 17th in WRC+, 22nd in on-base percentage. The last 6 righty starters to pitch against the Phillies, 29 2/3 innings pitched, a 2.73 ERA, and a 1.14 WHIP. So righty starters really haven't had a ton of problems with this Phillies lineup lately. On the other side, we got Christopher Sanchez pitching, and this kid's been good for the Phillies. I've watched 2 or 3 of his starts now. Through 5 starts, he's got a 2.80 ERA and a 3.28 expected FIP. Solid numbers here. Now, I will say he's definitely got better looking numbers in his road starts than at home. He's got an 0.90 ERA on the road compared to a 4.11 at home, but it's a pretty small sample size, and the expected FIP numbers are pretty close anyway, so I'm not paying too much attention to that. But I will say those 3 home starts with the higher ERA, the Mets, the Nats, and the Rockies. 3 teams that you really shouldn't be struggling with if you're a lefty starter. Speaking of lineups against lefty starters, let's talk Padres bats for a second. In the last 30 days, they got great numbers against lefties. 7th in isolated power, 8th in WRC+, 7th in on-base percentage. That's in the last 30 days against left-handed pitching. But are the Padres cooling off against lefties? I mean, those are the numbers from the last 30 days. Look at the numbers specifically from the last 4 lefty starters to pitch against the Padres. They combined for a 2.73 ERA and an 0.95 WHIP in those starts. So the last few lefties to pitch against San Diego were actually able to put up quality starts. I'm not saying I like Christopher Sanchez the deal here, but that is a bit concerning if you're on the Padres. Now, bullpen-wise, there's no question at all the Phillies have the huge edge here. In the last 30 days before the break, the Phillies bullpen was far outproducing San Diego. 5th in ERA, 1st in expected FIP. Padres in those categories in the same time span, 24th and 23rd. So I think Yu Darvish pitches a good game in this one, but I just don't trust the Padres bats enough, and I don't trust the Padres bullpen enough. So I think the value is more on the Phillies. Definitely not one of my favorite spots, but I'm going to say Phillies money line or pass for now. I'll let you know a final decision on the live show tomorrow at 4 p.m. Next game. Marlins at Orioles. Sandy Alcantara pitching against Dean Kramer. This one opens up as a pick'em, minus 110 across the board. Total opens up at 8. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we have no lean at all. 3-3 after 5 innings, 5-5 after 9 innings. So I know it's a super small sample size. We're talking about 32 career at-bats here, but this Orioles lineup has great lifetime numbers against Sandy Alcantara. They're hitting 281 off him with a 968 OPS. They've got 3 homers off Sandy in just 32 career at-bats. Sandy's only made 1 career start against Baltimore, and it wasn't great. 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, and 2 home runs. And the spot only gets worse for Sandy Alcantara as we keep digging here. His worst split on the season is on the road against left-handed bats. 336 WOBA, 156 WHIP, and a 10.7 walk percentage. That's bad. Why are these numbers significant? Well, in this matchup particularly, the Baltimore Orioles are most likely going to have 7 left-handed bats in their starting lineup here. So don't love the look of that for Sandy. And you remember a couple weeks ago where we were questioning the Orioles lineup specifically against right-handed pitching, probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I was the one saying it. Well, they've arrived. In the last 14 days before the break, Baltimore is top 10 in both OPS and WRC plus against right-handed pitching. The last 4 righty starters to pitch against Baltimore, 19 innings pitched, an ERA and an even 9, 1.42 home runs per 9, and a 178 WHIP. So they've really been getting to righty starters. You want to know who they were, those last 4 righty pitchers? Joe Ryan, Sonny Gray, Bailey Ober, and Luis Severino. I know some people are looking at Sandy's recent numbers. They're looking at the FIP numbers, and they're thinking he's about to turn things around and come back. Maybe, but I just don't like this spot for him against Baltimore. Speaking of starting pitchers that I don't trust at all, let's talk Dean Kramer baseball for a second. As you can see, numbers from the last 6 starts definitely not matching up with his numbers from the previous 6 starts. He did pitch well against the Yankees in his last start, but he was struggling a bit heading into the break for sure. Some good news for Dean Kramer, though, without Jazz Chisholm, because Jazz Chisholm is on the IL yet again. Marlins will most likely have 5 right-handed bats in their lineup. Dean Kramer's best split is at home against righties. The 283 WOBA, 108 WHIP. Both FIP and expected FIP numbers are solid as well. And to be honest, the Marlins bats just don't really scare me. I mean, they never really have. I know they've been winning games, but I don't really fear this lineup at all. In the last 30 days, the Fish are 20th in OPS, 20th in WRC+, 23rd in isolated power. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I trust Dean Kramer at all, but I don't think it's crazy to think he pitches a good game against this Marlins lineup. Now, when we talk bullpens, you definitely do have to give the edge to Miami without a doubt. At a quick glance, you may see the ERA numbers are about even, but look at the FIP and expected FIP numbers. I mean, Marlins are 6th and 2nd in the last 30 days. The Baltimore bullpen, 13th and 10th. So it's not like the Orioles bullpen has been terrible, but you definitely have to give the production edge to the Marlins, at least in the last month. I want to see what the line does in this one, but I'm probably going to be betting the O's here. Obviously, if the entire world comes in on Baltimore and this price jumps up to minus 135, might end up being a pass for me. But as of right now, I'm going to sit Baltimore money line next game. Giants at Pirates. This is one of the who gives a shit games of the night. Ross Stripling pitching against Rich Hill. Giants open up his road favorites here, minus 150. Total opens up at 8. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and no lean at all as far as picking a side. We're looking at a 3-3 tie after 5 innings. After 9 innings, 5-5 tie. I'm going to skip this one for now. The Giants have Ross Stripling, like I said, listed as a starter. Usually he's not the primary pitcher. I mean, at least lately he's been going just 2 innings, or maybe someone else is going to start. I don't know. The Giants have been managing their rotation very strangely, so I'm going to skip until I have a better idea of who's pitching next game. D-backs at Blue Jays. This should be an interesting series here. Ryan Nelson pitching against Chris Bassett. Toronto opens up as pretty heavy favorites here, minus 180. Total opens up at 9. Take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we have no lean at all after 5 innings. 3-3 tie. Final score 5-4 Toronto. So we need to show some respect to Ryan Nelson. Somehow this dude continues to put up excellent numbers on the road. He's got a 281 ERA and a 103 WHIP on the road this season. FIP below 4. I mean, this man continues to deliver in his road starts. And somehow he just seems to be getting even better. In his last 6 road starts, he's got a 149 ERA and an 080 WHIP. I mean, now the 446 expected FIP does indicate that he's gotten a bit lucky, but still, a 446 expected FIP isn't awful. And do we really think this is the spot where Ryan Nelson's hot streak on the road ends? I mean, the Blue Jays offense certainly isn't setting the world on fire against righties. On the last 30 days, they're 21st in WRC+, 18th in isolated power. Not exactly blowing me away with those numbers, Toronto. Now, the Blue Jays were able to get to Alex Faedo. They got to him. But if you take out that game, the last 7 righty starters to pitch against Toronto combined for 36 1/3 innings pitched, a 247 ERA, and an 088 WHIP. So righty starters really weren't having problems with this Toronto lineup heading into the break. Now, the good news for Toronto is they've got Chris Bassett making a home start here. He's got a 2.41 ERA and a 3.45 FIP at home compared to a 5.81 and a 6.05 on the road. He's been excellent at home in Toronto this season. That being said, he does struggle with left-handed bats at home, same as he does on the road. 3.10 WOBA and a 5.10 expected FIP against lefty bats. Arizona's most likely going to be starting 5 lefties in their lineup in this game as well. But even so, he hasn't struggled against Arizona in the past, certainly not at home. His last 2 home starts against the D-backs, he's 2-0 with a 2.08 ERA and an 0.69 WHIP. And what was I saying about this Arizona lineup over and over again before the break? What was I saying on the live show? They're starting to slump against right-handed pitching. If you look at the numbers from the last 14 days before the break, 25th in WRC plus, 17th in isolated power. Not good. The last 4 righty starters to pitch against the D-backs absolutely dealt. 24 in the third innings pitched, 0.37 ERA, 0.69 WHIP. Want to know who those starters were? Kodai Senga, Carlos Carrasco, Mitch Keller, I'll give you, and then Carmen Malazinski or whatever, the Pirates guy. Those are the 4 starters that put up those electric numbers against this Arizona lineup. Heading into the break, the D-backs weren't touching righty starters, so I don't see any reason to doubt Chris Bassett at home in this spot. And then you add on the fact that Toronto also probably has the bullpen edge as well. On the last 30 days, the Blue Jays bullpen has been silently producing. 10th in ERA and 5th in expected FIP. Arizona's 15th and 12th in the same categories in the same time span. So I like the Blue Jays here, but I absolutely hate the price. So I'm probably going to stay off the side. I'm thinking under in this one. I like the under at 9. I like the spot for both starting pitchers. I don't trust either lineup right now. And both bullpens have been pretty solid and obviously are well rested. So yeah, give me the under 9 next game. Brewers at Reds. Corbin Burns pitching against Graham Ashcraft. Brewers open up as very slight road favorites here, -115. Total opens up at 9.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. According to the model, we got to lean on Milwaukee. 4-3 Brewers after 5 innings. Final score 6-5 Brewers. I'm going to skip this one for now and save it for the live show at 4 p.m. Both these lineups just saw these starting pitchers. I hate that. I really want to see what the line does. I really want to see where the action comes in. The public's been heavy on the Reds, so I want to see if that continues. I'll let you know what the final decision is on the live show, 4 p.m. next game. Dodgers at Mets. Julio Urias pitching against Justin Verlander. Dodgers open up as very slight road favorites here, -115. Total opens up at 7.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we got to lean on the Metropolitans here. First 5 is 3-2 Mets. Final score 5-4 Mets. I know it seems like Justin Verlander has been so bad recently. At least that's how it feels for me as a Mets fan, maybe listening to New York media. But he really hasn't. Here are his last 5 starts on this chart. You can see here, other than the June 20th start on the road in Houston, by the way, the Astros were on a heater then, both his FIP and ERA numbers are below 4 in all of these, so he really hasn't been that bad at all. And if there's one place where you can trust Justin Verlander, it's at Citi Field. He's got a 5.18 ERA on the road, drops all the way to a 2.19 at home. WHIP, FIP, and expected FIP numbers all significantly better at home. Verlander's been solid at Citi Field this whole season. That being said, I mean, this Dodgers lineup is definitely not to be played with right now. On the last 30 days, they're 5th in OPS, 7th in WRC plus versus right-handed pitching. It's not being talked about that much, but the Dodgers really got themselves together offensively before the break. That slump they were in is definitely in the past. But some good news for the Mets would be the current Dodgers lineup has terrible career numbers against Verlander. Just 12 of 66 off of lifetime. That's just 182 for an average and a 527 OPS. Now, I'm sure many of those at-bats came against prime Justin Verlander, but still, they've struggled to hit this guy. Here's where this game gets insanely difficult to bet when we start looking at Julio Urias' shit. Because he's just been a mess on the road so far this year. He's got an 8.44 ERA and a 7.29 FIP on the road. In his road starts, opponents are batting combined 342 against Urias. 342 in 4 road starts. So the Mets should just smack him around, right? He's getting killed on the road. Well, not necessarily, because the Mets have some ugly looking numbers against left-handed pitching, 23rd in OPS and 19th in WRC plus in the last 30 days. So the Mets haven't really been getting to lefties. Also, Urias has great career numbers against the New York Mets. The current Mets bats are just 10 of 52 lifetime off Urias with a 577 OPS. So yeah, Urias has been awful on the road, but the Mets have bad numbers against him, and they have bad numbers against lefties. I mean, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place there. I think I'm just going to pass on this game. It's feeling way too much like a coin flip. I'd probably lean Mets first 5 money line at -105. Probably be my favorite bet. Maybe when I see some line movement, things will change, but I'll let you know on the live show. But as of right now, this is probably a pass for me. Next game. White Sox at Braves. Michael Kopech pitching against Charlie Morton. Braves open up as minus 210 favorites here at home. Total opens up at 8.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and of course, we have a lean on the Braves. 5-3 Braves after 5 innings. Final score 8-4 Braves. So I don't know what's going on with Michael Kopech lately. Dude just cannot stop walking people. I mean, he's coming off an injury. He's been out like 2.5 weeks, but he just could not stop walking people. Here are his numbers from his last 3 starts compared to the previous 6. It looked like Michael Kopech was getting his shit together for a little bit there. But his last 3 starts, sure, the 4.38 ERA doesn't look bad, but 7.33 FIP, 7.30 expected FIP, 36% hard hit rate, 25% walk rate, 25. He was walking 1 out of every 4 batters. And you can see the previous 6 starts in an ERA down at 2. He looked like he was getting himself together, but the wheels just fell off for Kopech. Now, was that brief trip to the IL enough to snap him out of that slump? I mean, it was a nice little 2.5 week break for him. I mean, either way, whether you think that'll snap him out of the slump or not, I don't see any reason to back him in this one against Atlanta. In case you haven't heard, the Braves are really good. Their numbers against righties in the last 30 days, first in WRC+. They're actually second in isolated power, and it's shocking. Can't remember the last time I saw the Braves second in something, especially against right-handed pitching. First in OPS as well. The last 9 righties to pitch against Atlanta, 39 innings pitched, an 8.54 ERA, a 3.46 home runs per 9 is crazy, and a 172 whip. So righty starters are not having a good time pitching against the Atlanta Braves. I thought there might be some concern for a second when I looked at the White Sox career numbers against Charlie Morton, because their lineup actually has done well against them. They're hitting 293 combined off Charlie Morton lifetime with an 838 OPS, so that's pretty good. But then I looked at Charlie Morton's last 3 starts against the White Sox and I felt better. He's 3-0 with a 3.57 ERA and a 102 whip. So yeah, maybe the White Sox bats have some good hitting numbers against Charlie Morton, but certainly hasn't bothered him in his last 3. The only real concern for the Braves here would be Charlie Morton's home away splits. I mean, they're really not even that bad. 287 ERA and a 287 FIP. They jump up to a 412 and a 491 at home. So he's definitely been better on the road. But the thing is, Charlie Morton's splits were kind of the opposite last year. He was good at home and bad on the road. So it's not like Charlie Morton doesn't know how to pitch at home in Atlanta. We know he does, so I'm not worried about that. I'm just grasping at straws here, but Charlie Morton's worst splits this year at home against right-handed bats. The White Sox start 7 righties in their lineup. See, he's got a 460 expected FIB. I mean, this is razor thin. I'm trying to find any way to get to the Chicago White Sox in this one, and I'm just not seeing it. Chicago's numbers against right-hand pitching, certainly not threatening. On the last 30 days, 22nd in WRC+, 26th in on-base percentage. They are 11th in isolated power, and that's a bit interesting because Charlie Morton's got a 1.5 home runs per 9 against right-handed bats, so we'll probably see a White Sox solo home run or 2 in there. But there's nothing here that shows they'll get consistent base runners in this game. The last 3 righty starters to pitch against the White Sox have absolutely dealt. 20 innings pitched, a 135 ERA and an 065 whip. And those guys were named Miles Michaelis, Jose Barrios is solid, and Chris Bassett. So it's not like they saw 3 aces. Righties haven't had a problem with the White Sox. And last up, let's look at the bullpen. Surprise, surprise, the edge goes to the Atlanta Braves. Shocker. In the last 30 days, Braves bullpen 2nd in ERA, 3rd in expected FIP. White Sox 22nd and 8th. Look, I'm not crazy about laying 1.5 runs with a home team with minus 130, minus 135 juice attached to it. But there's just no way I'm fading Atlanta here. Maybe parlay Braves money line with something. I don't know. I'm on the Braves. I just don't know exactly how I'm going to bet it. I'll let you know on the live show at 4 p.m. next game. Red Sox at Cubs. Brian Bayo pitching against Kyle Hendricks. This should be a solid pitching matchup here. Boston opens up as minus 120 favorites, so slight road favorites. Total opens up at 9. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet, and we have no lean at all as far as picking a side. 1-1 tie after 5 innings. Final score 3-3. Do I even need to give out Brian Bayo numbers at this point? I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone is aware that this dude's an absolute monster. Look at his numbers from his last 12 starts. This dates back to April. This is since April. He's got a 235 ERA with a 109 whip, both FIP and expected FIP under 4. This kid's an absolute machine. And if you're worried about Bayo going on the road into Wrigley Field here, look at his road starts in that span. Numbers are basically identical, and he's gone into Atlanta, Yankee Stadium, at White Sox, at Angels. I mean, this kid has already proven to us that he can be trusted on the road. And it's not like the Cubs lineup should scare us at all. In the last 30 days, they're 18th in WRC+, 20th in OPS. This is their numbers against right-handed pitching. The Cubs bats were hot about a month ago, but since then, it's been all downhill. Here are the Cubs OPS numbers by week over the last 4 weeks. You could just see serious drop off in production. We were seeing some in early June, like I said, but not recently. I don't see any reason why Bayo's reign of terror stops here. But Brayan Bello isn't the only starter in this game that's pitching well recently. We got Kyle Hendricks on the other side, and he's been dealing. Here are his 9 starts on the season, and yes, he did get rocked in his last one at Yankee Stadium, but clearly that's an outlier. Basically, he spent the entire season with his earned run numbers and FIP numbers at 4 or below. Kyle Hendricks is having himself a nice little season here. Now, we do have to give some props to the Boston Bats. They've definitely shown some life. Their numbers on the road in the last 30 days aren't bad at all. In fact, they're kind of good. You can see top half the league in basically every single category. 11th in OPS, 12th in WRC+. I still think Kyle Hendricks pitches well here, but I'd be lying if I said the Boston Bats don't worry me a bit. They definitely do. Now, here's where this one gets a bit dicey, because when I was looking at this game, I was definitely leaning Boston, and I still am. Spoiler alert, I'm leaning Boston. But the Cubs bullpen, no question, has outperformed the Red Sox bullpen. In the last 30 days, the Cubs are 2nd in ERA, 13th in expected FIP. Red Sox 11th and 17th. So if you're betting Boston here, this is the area you should be worrying about, is the bullpen, because the Cubs bullpen really found itself in the last month before the break. So in conclusion, yeah, I like Kyle Hendricks. I think he can pitch well, and I like the Cubs bullpen, but I just don't see how I can fade Bello and the Sox. I mean, this kid is one of the hottest pitchers in baseball, if not the hottest. So what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to go Boston money line at -120, but I'm probably going to split my money in half and put the other half on the under at 9.5. Really don't understand this total at all. Maybe I'm a bit of a sucker. Maybe this under is probably going to be a bit square, but I don't care. Give me Red Sox money line and under 9.5 next game. Cleveland at Texas. Guardians at Rangers. Aaron Civale pitching against John Gray. Texas opens up as -145 favorites. Total opens up at 8.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet now. According to the model, we have a very slight lean on Cleveland after 5 innings and a very slight lean on Texas after 9 innings. But, I mean, look at these scores. 2.85 to 2.41, 4.48 to 4.55. So we're basically deadlocked here. So like I said, we got John Gray on the mound, and this guy was really struggling heading into the All-Star break. Through his first 12 starts on the year, he had a 2.32 ERA and an 0.96 whip. He was pitching great, but in his last 4 starts before the break, 6.98 ERA and a 1.81 whip. Now his FIP and expected FIP numbers indicate that it's not quite that dramatic, but still definitely a drop off in production here. I mean, Toast was saying it was ever since he got a blister. I'm not really sure on that, but no question there's been a drop off in production from John Gray. Now he's set to pitch against this Cleveland lineup that's really got some interesting numbers against right-handed pitching over the last 30 days. Check this out. So they're hitting 285 as a team against righties in the last 30 days. That's 2nd in baseball, but there just hasn't been any power from this lineup. Just 111 in isolated power. That's dead last, 30th. Very strange. And it gets even weirder when we look at the last few righties to pitch against Cleveland. So these are the righty starters to pitch against the Guardians since July 1st. They completely rock Marcus Stroman and Wrigley. Rocked them. But then they can't touch Jordan Lyles or Michael Soroka, and then they follow that up by lighting Brady Singer the hell up. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine here when it comes to this Cleveland Guardians lineup, man. I will say that I personally like the Cleveland lineup, and I think they'll score runs on John Gray here. I don't have any definitive numbers to show it. I just personally think they're going to. On the other side, like I said, we've got Aaron Civale, and here's yet another guy with some misleading home-away splits. At first glance, you might see that 1.25 ERA on the road and think you found a gem, but the whip is the same as his whip is home. FIP and expected FIP are actually lower at home, so Civale isn't as much of a savage on the road as that ERA looks. But the thing is, even without his home-away splits, how can you argue with these numbers? Civale's having an excellent season. 2.56 ERA, 1.06 whip, 3.62 FIP, 4.39 expected FIP, all solid. Civale's having a career year. That being said, I do have to question this guy's opponents. I mean, look who he's pitched against on this season. You can see he's been very fortunate. He started 9 games, and he's yet to pitch against a single lineup in the top 14 against right-handed pitching on the season. The Texas Rangers are 5th. So yeah, on the road in Texas, this will be the toughest spot for Aaron Civale to pitch in this whole season, probably by a pretty good margin. So I really don't like this matchup for either starting pitcher. I think Texas gets the Savali, and I think Cleveland gets the John Gray. So maybe a first 5 over here. That's not my pick, but I might look first 5 over on the side. But now let's look at the bullpen matchup. And at first glance, you might think Cleveland has the huge edge in the bullpen department just by looking at the ERA numbers. But the FIP and expected FIP numbers are showing us that the Rangers bullpen is definitely a bit undervalued. And we just saw guys like Clase and Stephan really struggling for Cleveland right before the break. So I don't know if I'd give the bullpen edge to Cleveland right now. In fact, I think it might be a wash. I think the best way to go here is just play the over at 8.5. I want to take Cleveland at the plus money price, but I don't know if there's a ton of value in that. I'm really worried about Savali in this spot. So I'm going to say over 8.5 or Cleveland team total over. Probably going to go with one of those. I'll let you know on the live show at 4 p.m. next game. Rays at Royals. Tyler Glasnow versus Alec Marsh. Tampa opens up as minus 290 favorites here. Total opens up at 8.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. According to the model, of course, we have a huge lean on Tampa. 6-2 Rays after 5 innings. Final score 9-3 Rays. So this man, Alec Marsh, is off to a bit of a rough start in his big league career. He's got an ERA and an even 7, a whip at 178. Definitely not very encouraging. That being said, his first career start was against the Dodgers. His second start in Minnesota wasn't nearly as bad as his first. So the jury's still out on this kid. But I really can't imagine things are going to get easier for him against Tampa. Here are their numbers in the last 30 days against right-handed pitching. 12th in OPS, 9th in WRC+. Maybe not the numbers we were seeing from the Rays back in April and May, but still, this is a very dangerous lineup, and I just don't see how we can count on Marsh stopping these guys from scoring runs. On the other side, we've got Tyler Glasnow, and his surface-level numbers definitely aren't the greatest looking. His last 5 starts, he's got a 4.85 ERA and a 1.31 whip. Nothing to write home about. But look at the FIP numbers. A 228 expected FIP is absolutely nuts. Shows us that Glasnow has been pitching much better than his numbers indicate, and there should be a positive turn coming soon for this man. And he gets the pitch against the Royals. It's like, obviously we know what it is when it comes to the Royals offense. I mean, KC is about as bad as it gets as far as scoring runs in Major League Baseball. In the last 30 days, they're 27th in OPS, 29th in WRC+ against right-handed pitching. Those are actually up from their season numbers. On the year, they're dead last in WRC+ versus righties. So I think Glasnow should be just fine in this spot. And then you add on the fact that Tampa also has the crazy bullpen edge in this one. I mean, look, if there was a way to get to Kansas City here to play it sharp and take the big plus money, I would find it. I'm just not seeing any reason to back the Royals in this one. The only possible angle I could come up with is maybe you could say the Rays lineup had, I think it was 3 guys travel to participate in the All-Star game. Maybe I don't know. It's thin. I can't see any way to get to the Royals, honestly. The problem is the price is absolutely crazy. To lay 1.5 with Tampa here is at minus 175. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the Kansas City team total under here. It's not open yet, so I can't give you a definitive answer. I need to see where the line opens, but Glasnow should absolutely deal. The Rays bullpen has been good as hell, and obviously it's completely rested coming off the break. So I really could see Kansas City scoring 2 or less runs in this game. I could see him getting shut out. So let's say Kansas City team total under. That's probably where I'm going with this one next game. Nats at Cardinals. Mackenzie Gore pitching against Miles Michaelis. St. Louis opens up as minus 170 favorites here. Total opens up at 8.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. We got a 3-3 tie after 5 innings. Final score 6-5 Cards. So I don't have a ton of hope for Mackenzie Gore in this spot. Cardinals lineup just saw this kid back on June 20th, just 3 weeks ago. They had 9 hits and scored 5 earned runs on him. That was in Washington. This one's at home at Busch Stadium. Cardinals have really woken up against left-handed pitching. Here are their numbers against lefties in the last 30 days. 10th in OPS, 9th in WRC+. Starting to look a bit more like the Cardinals lineup from last year. If you remember, Cards finished the season first in OPS against left-handed pitching last season. And what makes St. Louis numbers against lefties even more impressive, look at the lefties they've seen in the past few weeks. Jesus Luzardo did blank them, but that was the 4th of July, a weird midweek holiday day game. I don't really care too much about that. They were able to score runs on Braxton Garrett in Miami. Not many have been doing that recently. They scored runs on Framber Valdez. Now, Justin Steele did pitch a good game against the Cardinals, but that was in London, another game where I'm not putting much weight in. And then Mackenzie Gore when they obviously rocked them. So that's a solid list of names as far as lefty starters against the team. And St. Louis is still top 10 in basically every statistic against lefties in that time span. I fully expect the Cardinals to completely rock Mackenzie Gore again in this one. On the other side, we've got Miles Michaelis, and this is just a tough guy to get a read on. He's another one who's got very misleading home away splits. You can see he's got a 5.32 ERA at home, drops all the way to a 344 on the road, but his FIP and expected FIP both lower in his home start, so I'm not going to pay much attention to these splits at all. And what makes it even tougher to handicap Miles Mikolas is the inconsistency. He was awful to start the season. His numbers in March and April were bad. Then he had an excellent May, looking like he was turning his season around. Then he just shit the bed again in June. He had a terrible June. And now, in his last start in July, he just threw 7 shutout innings in his last start on the road. I think it was against the White Sox. I can't remember if it was in Chicago. So 7 shutout innings on the road in Chicago. So I really don't know what to expect from Mikolas. Also need to mention that the Nats lineup did just see Mikolas just a few weeks back. He threw 7 innings of 2-run baseball in Washington, and that looks positive at first glance, but then you see that the Nats had 8 hits in that game, and Mikolas' expected FIP was 536, so I don't know how great of a spot on the stat sheet that is. And then you look at the Nationals' numbers against right-handed pitching before the break, and they're not even bad. 5th in average, 16th in OPS, 20th in WRC+. I mean, this Nats lineup is definitely not an auto fade at all. So I guess at this point I was leaning the Cardinals, but then we pull up the bullpen numbers, and this game just gets even more confusing. Both these bullpens have been terrible. In the last 30 days, the Cardinals are 28th in ERA, 19th in expected FIP. Nats are 26th and 28th. Really tough to bet a game with just a bunch of wild cards coming out of the bullpen. So I like the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals win the game, but minus 170 is just a steep price. It might be too expensive for me. So I'm going to say over 8.5 or Cardinals team total over. Probably going to go with one of those. Those lines aren't open. Well, the total's open, but team total lines are not open yet. So I'll let you know final decision on the live show at 4 p.m. next game. Yankees at Rockies. Carlos Rodon pitching against Austin Gomer. Yanks open up as minus 200 favorites on the road here. Total opens up at 10.5. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet and a pretty heavy lean on the Yanks. 5-1 Yankees after 5 innings. Final score 7-3 Yankees. So at first glance, it looks like Rodon's first start back from injury against the Cubs was solid. 5 1/3 innings pitched, just 4 hits and 2 earned runs. But look at his FIP and expected FIP, both over 6. Now, using numbers like FIP and expected FIP in a 1-game sample size doesn't really make much sense, but still, definitely has me a bit worried considering he's about to pitch his next game in Coors Field. So part of me think the Rockies are going to get to this dude here, but Colorado's lineup does not have great career numbers against Rodon at all. In fact, they're pretty bad. They're just 12 of 57 off Rodon lifetime. That's just a 211 average, a 595 OPS, and just 2 RBIs in 57 career at-bats. Definitely not very encouraging. Also, at first glance, it may appear like the Rockies have been hitting lefties, and this always is the case with the Rockies numbers. That's why you got to be careful. On the last 30 days, they're 16th in OPS, 7th in isolated power, but those numbers are very much inflated by playing their home games at Coors Field. Look at the WRC+, which takes into account ballpark. They're all the way down at 25th, so it's towards the bottom of baseball where the Rockies lineup has been against left-handed pitching this whole season. So do I trust Carlos Rodon here? No. That being said, I don't trust the Rockies bats at all either, so kind of a question mark in that matchup. On the other side, we've got Austin Gomer pitching. He did look great in his last start, but the way the Yankees have been hitting left-handed pitching, I have no hope for this man. In the last 30 days, the Yanks are 2nd in OPS, 4th in WRC+. I mean, they should have no problem scoring runs in this game off Austin Gomer in Coors Field. So I'm on the Yanks here. I might even just lay the minus 1.5. I might take the Yankees team total over, maybe play both. I'm not 100% decided. I'm waiting for a few more lines to open, but I can safely say I will not be betting the Colorado Rockies in this one. So I'm going to bet the Yanks in some way. I'll let you know on the live show next game. Astros at Angels. JP France pitching against Shohei Ohtani. Angels open up as minus 120 favorites. Total opens up down at 6.5. 6.5. It's already up to 8 though, but it's a low opening total. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. According to the model, we're looking at 2-2 after 5 innings. Final score 5-4 Houston. So like I said, we got JP France on the mound, and it's a road game. So let's start by pulling up his home away splits, and you can see his ERA is at 4.91 at home, drops all the way down to a 1.95 on the road. So at first glance, that looks great, but then we got yet another pitcher with misleading home away splits. Because look at the underlying numbers here. WHIP is about the same. Now the FIP is lower, but the expected FIP about the same. I think it's safe to say that JP France has had some tremendously good luck in his road starts to have that 1.95 ERA. So I definitely think we're going to see some regression from JP France on the road after the All-Star break. but can we count on the Angels lineup to be the ones to do it? Because here are their recent numbers against right-handed pitching. The last 14 days have not been pretty. Second in OPS, 22nd in OPS, 23rd in WRC plus. And what makes it even crazier, look at their numbers against right-handed pitching in the 14 days prior to that. Second in OPS, second in WRC plus. Yes, there are some injuries involved here, but this Angels lineup has just fallen off a cliff against right-handed pitching. So even though I do think there's regression coming for JP France, I think we're going to see him throw another good game here on the road. On the other side, we got Shohei Ohtani, and obviously, I mean, you all know how well this dude's been pitching at home in LA this year. 2.35 ERA compared to a 4.60 on the road. But similar to JP France, the underlying numbers indicate that those ERA numbers are exaggerated. WHIP and expected FIP are both a lot closer to that. Regardless, it's Ohtani at home. He's a machine. No reason to doubt this guy. And the Astros lineup doesn't have nearly as scary looking numbers as you'd think. In the last 30 days against right-handed pitching, we're talking about 11th in OPS and 11th in WRC plus. They had one really hot week there. I think it was at the end of June. But overall, Houston's bats have been just okay against right-handed pitching. I mean, look at the last 4 righty starters to pitch against Houston. Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, Louis Castillo, George Kirby. Those 4 guys combined to pitch 26 and 2/3 innings, allowing just 3 total earned runs combined in all 4 starts. So yeah, the Houston Astros lineup was not getting to righty starters before the break. And look at the Astros lineup's career numbers against Shohei Ohtani. Not good. Just 28 of 122 off on lifetime. That's just a 230 average with a 607 OPS. There's a couple guys that have decent numbers against Ohtani. Alex Bregman and Jose Abreu are the 2 that really jump out. But for the most part, this current Astros lineup has struggled to hit off Shohei. And look at Ohtani's numbers the last 3 times the Astros came into LA against them. 2.14 ERA, 2.07 FIP, 2.89 expected FIP. I mean, absolutely elite. So I'm not seeing a ton of evidence here that points towards the Astros scoring runs on Ohtani in this game. I'm just not seeing it. So I like both starting pitchers to pitch well here, but when we look at the bullpens, we see a clear cut advantage on the Houston Astros. Not even that the Houston Astros bullpen has been great. In the last 30 days, Houston's pen is 18th in ERA, 18th in expected FIP, but the Angels bullpen has been they're basically dead last in every single category in the last 30 days. So even though Houston's bullpen has been just okay, it's still way better than the production we've seen from the Angels bullpen. So even if you like Shohei Ohtani to pitch well in this game, which I do, I think he'll pitch a good game. I think we're going to see 6 innings, 1 run. I think he'll pitch a good game. I still think the Astros have a good shot at winning by just how bad that Angels bullpen has been. So I'm going Houston here at the plus price and get it like plus 135, plus 140. Give me Astros money line next game. Minnesota at Oakland, Twins at A's. I guess it's Kenta Maeda. At first it was Pablo Lopez. Now it's looking like Kenta Maeda. I'm not even 100% sure who's starting for Oakland. I think it might be Paul Blackburn. So I'm going to skip this one for now because I don't 100% know who's pitching. So I might have a bet for this one on the live show at 4 p.m., but nothing for now. Next game, Tigers at Mariners. Erod. Eduardo Rodriguez is pitching against Louis Castillo. Good pitching matchup here. Seattle opens up as pretty heavy favorites at home, minus 170. Total opens up at 7. Let's take a quick look at the spreadsheet. And according to the model, we got to lean on Seattle. 3-1 Mariners after 5 innings. Final score 5-3 Mariners. So we need to try and figure out what the deal here is with Erod. Here are his numbers in his 8 starts before May 16th compared to his 4 starts since May 16th. Now, to be fair, there was a long injury break in there. He missed about 5 weeks, but still, the drop-off in production is a bit concerning. A 1.57 ERA in his first 8 starts compared to a 5.40 in his last 4. WHIP is basically doubled. So he's allowing base runners at double the rate in his last 4 starts. But again, let's look at the FIP and expected FIP numbers. They're showing us that he really hasn't been pitching that much worse. In fact, the expected FIP is lower in his last 4 games. Basically, what these numbers are showing us is that Eduardo Rodriguez was getting extremely lucky in his first 8 starts and extremely unlucky in his last 4. So his where we should actually be handicapping this guy is somewhere in between those 2 numbers. So I have no problem handicapping this guy as a 2.5 to 3 runs per 9 inning pitcher because I think his production should be somewhere in between those 2 numbers. And he's going to be pitching against Seattle in this one, obviously. Tough to know what to expect from these bats. Here are their numbers against lefties in the last 30 days. Certainly nothing that blows you away. 17th in WRC plus, 21st in OPS. And here's the thing with the Mariners, they really haven't seen much left-handed pitching. In the last month, they've only seen 3 lefty starters. 3 in the last month. One was Framber Valdez, and he pitched great against them last week. Another one was Shane McClanahan, and he struggled. The Mariners got to him, but if you remember, I called that. He was hurt. He's dealing with a back injury, and then they put him on the IL right after the game. I mean, he got hit up by the Royals to start before that. He wasn't right. Before that, Patrick Corbin came into Seattle and threw 7 shutout innings. My man, Patrick Corbin. So I like Eduardo Rodriguez to deal in this spot here. So you got the Mariners bats, right? So Erod's got insane splits against left-handed bats. Lefties cannot hit Erod. JP Crawford, Kalinick, both lefties for the Mariners, 2 of their 3 main bats. The other one, the third one, is Julio Rodriguez coming off the home run derby, and usually that throws a guy's swing off. So I think Eduardo Rodriguez is going to pitch a great game against the Mariners here. Now, on the other side, we got Luis Castillo pitching, and he's making a home start. So obviously, as we know, Castillo's been having a great season at home in Seattle. 2.44 ERA, jumps to a 3.51 on the road. WHIP, FIP, and expected FIP numbers all significantly better at home than on the road. No question. Castillo in Seattle, it's tough to fade that. But look at this. If you isolate it to just Castillo's last 3 starts at home, he hasn't looked nearly as good. A 1.89 ERA through his first 8 starts at home, 3.86 in his last 3. Look at the FIP and expected FIP numbers. Way up. Now, one of those starts was against Tampa. We can cut him some slack against the Tampa Bay Rays. But the other 2 were against Washington and Miami. So Castillo not quite as sharp in his last few home starts before the All-Star break. Certainly not as sharp as he was in the first 8. Now, here are the Tigers' numbers against right-handed pitching in the last 30 days. And you can see they're not exactly threatening. But you know what? They're not practical joke terrible. 24th in OPS, 23rd in WRC+. We just pulled up the Mariners' numbers against lefties for Erod. They're 21st and 17th. So it's not like the Tigers' bats against righties are that much worse than the Mariners' bats against lefties. This is a few spots. I still don't have a ton of faith in this Tigers lineup to get to Castillo, but like I said, I don't think the Mariners' bats get to Erod either. There's a reason the total for this game's all the way down at 7. Seems like the odds makers are seeing this game similarly. And then when we look at the bullpens, it's kind of hard not to lean Detroit here. This Tigers bullpen has outproduced the Mariners in the last 30 days. 14th in ERA, 5th in expected FIP. Mariners 15th and 12th. So Tigers might have the bullpen edge here as well. I think there's value here in a Detroit play. I'm going Detroit money line. It's sitting at a nice plus 175 price. I'm sure everyone's going to hate this one. I'm going to say Tigers money line or pass. I'm almost definitely going to be on the Tigers, but I'll let you know for sure in the live show. But you could pretty much chalk me up for Tigers money line. If anything changes with any of these bets, I will let you know on Twitter. So give me a follow there if you're interested. Also, I have the Instagram threads or whatever, so I'm going to start using that. I don't care. Whatever one wins, I'll side with that one between that stupid battle. But it's also at Kyle Kirms on there. Like I said, live show 4 p.m. We'll go through all 15 games. I'll be joined by Toast and FTB. We'll go through line movements, make our final decision. So if you're able to make it at 4 p.m. Eastern time, we'd love to see you in the comments. Also, if you want the final tickets we put out, which has my top bets, every single bet I'm making, how much I'm betting on each, parlay of the day, the VIP private chat with live bets, that kind of stuff, head over to KyleKirms.com. MLB's back. It's Friday, 15 games, loaded slate. I know you're going to be tempted to overextend and bet big. I know I am, but remember, we still got a lot of season left. It's the first day back from break. Let's take it easy. Remember to bet responsibly. And I'll talk to you guys on Twitter.